All right, how y'all doing today? Yeah. So let's bring Jerry and Jenna on up. Everyone give it up for Jerry and Jenna. How many of y'all are out of the closet? Yeah. All right. I'm glad that some of us are. I came out when I was 33, I believe. It took me a long time to come out because the biggest thing about it is you don't come out until you feel safe, until you are in a situation where there are people around you who will accept you for who you are. If you have a friend who is out, that is always going to help you. And so today we're going to be talking about that, about our experiences with coming out, about people who have inspired us to do so. One of the people that actually inspired me to come out is actually up on the stage with me right now, Jenna. Because when Jenna came out, and we're going to talk about it, that helped me kind of reconfigure my own understanding of toxic masculinity. And I don't want us to get too deep into the weeds on this, but we'll dive right into it. So I want to ask both of you, first off, can you please introduce yourself and tell us your pronouns?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jenna Daugherty. I go by Jenna, but you could really call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. My pronouns are she, her. I am 36 years old, and I don't know if we keep going or... I would say, I'll give you a brief overview. I came out at 28. I was repressed in a very conservative, fundamentalist, homeschooled Christian household. So you could imagine there was a lot of fucking shit I had to deal with before I came to who I was. And I am going on 37 now, and I am almost done with my physical transition. It's quite amazing. I don't quite know how I got here, but I am so fucking pumped. And I'm excited to tell everybody about my experience today. So for you.
Jerry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your pronouns?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Jerry Mai. Pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm from the Bay Area. Kind of born and raised here. I grew up with a very Vietnamese cultured family. Mom passed away when I was young, so my dad was the only one that took care of me. But he was very shy, reserved, didn't talk about feelings, but he was very successful, had multiple businesses, always kind of supported me throughout high school until I came out. It wasn't that much of a good experience, which I'm sure we'll get into. But for the most part, family was supportive till then. For the most part, I felt like I had a normal childhood. You know, kind of always did the things I wanted to do, be a part of Boy Scouts, wanted to be in law enforcement, was a police explorer in high school. So kind of navigated through all the things I wanted to do. And now, you know, I kind of give back to the community. Currently, I serve Silicon Valley Pride as Chief Logistics Officer, and it's kind of my way to give back, and I enjoy doing it. So happy to be on this panel and ready to talk.
My name is Gregg Aronica, and my pronouns are he, him. And yeah, like I said, I came out when I was like 33 or so. And my family, I'm extremely privileged. My family basically accepted me immediately. When I told my parents I was bisexual, my mom was like, all right, cool. And that was pretty much it. But I realized that is an extremely privileged position to be in. And so I've pretty much dedicated my life and everything to advocating for people who don't have that, advocating for people who don't have that voice, and advocating for people who don't feel comfortable enough to come out, to try to create spaces that allow people to feel safe. So that's kind of why I wanted to be here today, and also why I asked you two also to be on this panel, and why I'm so thankful to Silicon Valley Pride. Let's give it up for Silicon Valley Pride.
Yes!
This is so fantastic. And also let's give it up to Open San Jose and Create TV for hosting us today, because heck yeah, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And thank you for allowing us to be here. We really, really appreciate that. So how about you tell us your coming out experience? Jenna, why don't you start with that?
Absolutely. I don't know how long I can take this. I'll try to sum it up as short as I can. Like I said, I grew up right here in Fremont. And like Gregg, a lot of my coming out, for the most part, has been fairly privileged. And I am fairly lucky as well. My dad disowned me. My mom has had some struggles, and I've had to deal with that. But my siblings have been amazing. And a lot of my friends have been super supportive. I lost quite a few. Given my background, I'm surprised I didn't lose more. So that is something I'm surprised about. But I think, like with most queers, we kind of instinctively know as soon as we start gaining some kind of consciousness and awareness of what the world is going on. And when I was 5 years old, I would sit and I was completely sheltered, right? All the bigots will tell you, oh, these trans people, they're coming in and they're grooming your children and they're giving them these ideas. And if they just were normal, blah, blah, blah. We all know that's bullshit. When I was 5 years old, I would sit in my bed at night and I would pray to God. And I would say, please turn me into a girl. I don't want to be a boy anymore. And obviously it didn't work. And so throughout my life, I would sneak, I would dress up here and there, my mom's clothes, my sister's clothes. And I would just tell myself, oh, this is what I should be doing. And of course I would get guilty conscience. I'd be like, well, no, that's sinful, quote unquote. You can't do that. And so I had a sort of long, I was a theater kid. And so I kind of would blur the lines a little bit on Halloween and stuff. And some of my friends would be like, wow, you enjoy it a little bit too much. I'm like, I'm just acting, no big deal. And I remember specifically in high school, a girlfriend of mine for Twin Day during Spirit Week wanted me to be her twin. And I was like, oh my God, does she know? How does she know? And I was just like, no, you dummy. You're the class clown. Of course they're going to come pick you. And so I played it off. But it was the first time in public that I had done it. And it was like, wow. And they picked my name, Jenna. And I was like, oh my God, I love that name. That's so cute. And I told myself, whenever that happens, I don't know when, that's going to be my name. And so in college, I started experimenting more. And by the time I reached 28 years old, I just said, I had enough. I can't do this anymore. My catalyst, unfortunately, was Caitlyn Jenner. She had come out a month before I came out. And yeah, it is what it is. I still will thank her for that. Everything else, she can, leave. But I always had this sense of just self-assurance that I'm going to figure it out. But in that time leading up to it, it was obviously incredibly hard because you're dealing, like what Gregg said, toxic masculinity. Every time you want to do something feminine, some guy would go like, that's gay, bro. And then you would, oh no. And then you kind of just have to mentally work it up. You know that when you're making this decision, it's going to be a big thing. And a lot of people in your family are not going to get it. And I started with strangers. I would tell strangers on the internet, this is who I am. And eventually I moved my way up to when I eventually told my closest friends and my family, and I knew that my dad was going to be the hardest one. That's why I saved him for last. And I wrote him this big, long letter. I said, hey, Dad, this person that you raised and you named is going away, and I know that's going to be hard for you. I just want to let you know that if you want to make an effort, I'm here to help you. And sadly, of course, hell didn't freeze over. And he did not choose to stay in my life. But like Gregg said, I am a big advocate of trying to help people where they're at and bring them, the ones sitting on the fence, the bigots, I don't even fucking go for those people. Just stay away. And for the people that support us, I don't need to worry about them. I focus on the people on the fence, and because I am cis-passing and I am straight, I have a lot of support and I'm financially pretty okay. I feel very obligated to do whatever I can to help those that aren't as fortunate in our community to be able to be comfortable being who they truly are, because we know how uncomfortable it is to have to live a lie, to have to pretend that we're not this person that society said we had to be. and how much that just breaks our spirit to the point. And so I like I said, I am very fortunate that I have been able to somewhat start making myself, I refer to myself an aspiring activist. I have not in any way where I want to be, but I've had some opportunities recently that have kind of pushed me farther on. I'm officially the LGBTQ representative for the city of Fremont during Pride Month. Yes, I was very proud of that. Some other opportunities have presented themselves, and so I'm things along with my finishing of my transition. I'm in a very, very good spot right now, and I'm very excited for what I'm doing and what I'm potentially going to be able to do in the future. So I hope that wasn't too long. That was a bit of my entire life in a nutshell. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Honestly, it's hard. It's hard to get to a space where you feel comfortable sharing your story, and but doing so is very freeing. I've always found. So yes, thank you. Thank you. Jerry, why don't you tell us your coming out experience?
Sure. I'll try and summarize it in a nutshell as well. So growing up in a Vietnamese household, you had to either grow up to be a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, something that was stable and steady. The one which wasn't a problem at the time for me. I was like, sure, I could be a lawyer. I have a passion for law, not a problem. The one thing I knew I was different was that, yes, I was gay. Didn't know how to express that. Had girlfriends through high school, middle school. I was kind of in denial, I think, trying to think that I was different. It wasn't until 15, 16, met my first boyfriend on an AOL chat room. And lo and behold, he actually lived in Hayward. And so, I would sneak out of the house, go meet him in Hayward, do what 16-year-olds do. And, felt like everything was right. Was in love. Everything was good. Didn't tell my family yet. That was the one thing. I'm scared to tell my dad. The other part about being in a Vietnamese household was that you had to marry a woman. You had to have kids and give the family, continue the family line. And so that was the one thing holding me back. I didn't know how to express that. I had my little brother who just came into the picture. Also didn't know how to tell my stepmom. It wasn't until Christmas that me and my boyfriend at the time, we posted a picture of us on MySpace, and his family found out. His family had kicked him out on the morning of Christmas. And so the overthinker that I am and caring person at the time, I was just like, you know what? Come to my family's Christmas. They're going to love you. I'm going to come out of the closet. Why not? Today is the perfect day. So all these thoughts are rushing through my head because not only am I about to come out of the closet, but I'm about to bring my Black boyfriend into the home. And originally, all I told them was, it's my friend. My friend, he needs a place to have dinner tonight, whatever. So my family was very open, very inviting. They're like, yes, your friends, anybody could come, totally okay. So I came, walked into the house, it's about an hour, the whole family's there, cousins, nephews, nieces, you name it. I'm like, surprise, I'm gay. This is my boyfriend, and he was kicked out, so he needs a place to stay as well. He needs a place to live. My family, jaws dropped. Not the reaction I expected. It was the most awkward Christmas ever. Literally, we sat there in silence, eating food, and didn't say a single word for like a couple hours. So later that night, I exploded. I was just like, what the fuck? Fuck all of y'all. I don't know why you guys are acting like this. We're normal. I'm normal. Support me, love me like you've always had. That wasn't the case. So we left. We left that night. We slept in his car. And the next day, come home, all my shit's outside. So everything in my bedroom completely gone. And they go, until you're ready to change, until you're ready to be normal, you're not welcome in this household. So my boyfriend and I, we tried to make it work. We were living out of this car for about 5 months until he couldn't handle it no more. So he was like, I'm straight and I'm going to go back to my family and live that life. I still couldn't go back to my household. So I spent probably the next 2 years, so 16, 17, 18, homeless, in and out of shelters, streets of San Jose. I was scared. I was scared in the sense that if my own family couldn't support me, who do I go to? My friends were all the same age. So it's not like I could spend the night there. And I was afraid that their families also wouldn't have supported me. So at that point in my life, I felt that being gay was not okay. Being gay there was nobody else out there that was gay. So having to navigate through that, through just closing off at school, not talking to anybody, really getting depressed, contemplating suicide, trying to figure out how to be normal. And it was like hooking up with people just to see if this was right, or using that as an opportunity to have a place to have a safe place, right? Shelters were not safe at the time. There was a lot of drugs, crime that was going. It just wasn't right. It wasn't until probably 18 or 19, I ran into some volunteers, actually at San Jose, back when San Jose Pride was called San Jose, and not Silicon Valley. Pride Festival, did I run into these two individuals. They were part of a group called the Human Rights Campaign. For those that don't know, they're a LGBT organization based out in Washington, D.C. And he knew, I was just checking out the booths and stuff, and he knew something was up. So, we started talking, and I started coming out, telling him what had happened and my struggles and so forth. And he was like, dude, I went through the same exact thing. Family kicked me out. I didn't know what to do. I was homeless. It was an exact replica of my story. And so since that time, those two people, Cameron and Cody, they kind of took me under their wing and kind of helped turn my life around. They let me stay in the extra bedroom that they have. Two complete strangers that I just didn't know. And the only thing we had in mutual was that we're gay. And they really helped turn my life around. They helped me get a job. They helped me understand life and that being gay was okay. So through that, prior to joining the board for Silicon Valley Pride, I was involved with the Human Rights Campaign for about 8 years. Had the privilege to travel to red states that really hate the LGBTQ community. And have had the honor and privilege to kind of share my story, to kind of advocate for pro-LGBT bills to get signed into law. And through that, it has been a remarkable experience to hear other stories, to hear youth that really look up to you, a complete stranger, because they're going through the hardest time of their life. And so that's why I've always had a passion for kind of giving back to the community. As of today, my family, we're civil. We talk. I have little siblings. That's kind of the only reason that I stay involved with my family. But my dad, till this day, he's like, I could arrange you a marriage and you could have kids, and you could still have kids too of your own, and good stuff. But we don't talk about relationships. We don't talk about my personal life. We just kind of like, hey, I'm doing good. How are you? And it's, again, very civil and quiet conversations. But again, love doing what I do now to get back to the community, just because we see different platforms and to kind of live our authentic selves every single day. So happy where I am now. And if I were to go back in time, I don't think I would change anything. I even though all the hardships I've had, it's taught me to be the person I am today. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like there is so much that we can do to help normalize our experiences and to help normalize our identities. You mentioned being in AOL chat rooms because that's, and this is, the internet is one of the first places that a lot of modern queers kind of realize that we are not straight. We realize that we are not, that we identify a little bit differently, and we find our experiences. I remember when I was growing up, I didn't even know the word bisexual existed. It wasn't, I'd see jokes about it. I'd see, people would joke, oh yeah, that person, they swing both ways, and that was like the extent of it. And it was always women on the screen that were bisexual. Never saw any bisexual men in anything. It wasn't until I was much older, and I had crushes on men, on women, on people who are now non-binary, and I just it didn't register for me for so long that like, this is the experience that I'm having. And then I started using the internet, started going into chat rooms, started going onto AO3, and reading fan fiction, reading stuff on Tumblr. And it wasn't until I saw like the word bisexual, I was like, what's this? And then I started kind of Googling it. And then, you Google stuff and you're like, oh, what does this word mean? Oh, I wonder what that word means. Oh, hold on. That's exactly what I'm feeling right now. That's exactly it. And then once it kind of clicks with you, there's this moment of epiphany and like pure joy that you get where you're like, I know exactly what's going on with me. I know why I know why I feel the way I do, why I'm attracted to the people that I do. It's because I identify this way. Was there a moment that you saw yourself? I know, Jenna, you had mentioned, of all people, Caitlyn Jenner. However, as a trans person that is on screen, that was extremely prominent, that had to have been kind of a semi-positive thing, seeing her on the screen.
Well, I will clarify, Caitlyn Jenner was the catalyst that pushed me out of the closet. Unfortunately, we didn't have much representation, much good representation. It was always the joke, Buffalo Bill or Michael Caine in Dressed to Kill, right? It's such horrible representation of trans people, make us look like, freaks who are murderers and kill people. And for me personally, a lot of my trans identity was stunted for a long time, mostly because it was either horrible media representation or pornography with horrible, transphobic slurs that they would use to categorize trans porn actresses and porn actors. And so my whole mentality was just askew. And it took me a long time to separate my female identity from what I had been trained to perceive on the internet. And it wasn't until I came across a trans girl on MySpace who was living in Fremont, the same city as me. And I said, oh, wow, she's not, like some weird representation in the media. It's not porn. It's just a person. And we actually became friends. And for a long time, she was kind of like an idol of mine. I never told her because I didn't want her to think I was like some weirdo who's like stalking her page or some shit like that. But I would tell her like, hey, look, I think I'm a cross-dresser. I don't know. I don't really know what terminology to use. And we kind of we hung out a couple times and we're actually good friends now. But for a long time, I on top of all the shame that I had from my fundamentalist Christian upbringing and not to mention just the toxic masculine culture that we've had to deal with for so long, I really did not get I'll be honest, I truly now, for the first time in my life since my surgeries, I really do feel like I'm finally coming into like my womanhood. Being a baby trans was, in a lot of ways, I tell people, was really hard because I had nothing to go off of. You know, right-wing bigoted media wants to tell you that we're everywhere, we're grooming and influencing all these children. It's not fucking true. And that's part of the reason why I am so passionate about putting myself out there for people who had nothing like me. And I can't even imagine in the 80s and the 90s when trans people were existing and we were just basically considered freaks. And, you know, it was really, really hard. Like I said, I just now feel like really for the first time in my life, I'm truly coming into my womanhood. And I really am starting to understand like the beauty and the diversity of our community and what it means to be trans and what it means to be queer. And so I guess in such a roundabout way, I guess I could tell you, I don't really know. I kind of just had to put that, you know, forge that path myself in a lot of ways. And at the very end, we had a problematic, toxic representative who kind of pushed me into the catalyst. So yeah, if I had to say, probably, I mean, obviously Laverne Cox, that helped, I will say. But I mean, my friend was probably the best representation because it was right there in my community. It was just another person that I could talk to, that I could be like, oh, wow, okay, this actually is okay. This is normal. I can do this. And, you know, it took me a few years to really muster up the courage because I had, as my former self, I knew, you remember, I knew a lot of people. I had a lot of different connections in my life. I really strategically thought out every person and every group of people. How are they potentially going to react? How am I going to mitigate potential loss? And it was just like this multiple step program, basically, that I kept in my brain. It's like, okay, this person, I'll deal with them in this way. This group, I deal with them in this way, yada, yada, yada. And eventually, somehow, I made it out the other side. And I'm incredibly proud of myself. And I feel really invigorated to just do whatever I can with the abilities and the skills and the blessings that I have to be able to hopefully make a little bit of an impact and make a little bit of a change. So, you know, because we're dealing right now with such a violent backlash, so many red states and even blue states, there's a lot of good blue states, but they're trying really hard to push all this groomer and anti-trans legislation. And it was actually one of my desires to become an advocate who can reach across into the Christian community because I have so much experience and I know the language and I know how to speak to these people. So that is like one thing for sure that I'm looking to do. But I feel like my field is completely open right now. So I'm really excited to see where I'm going.
Well, let's talk about how coming out has helped you professionally. So, Jerry, could you talk about like how, since you've come out, some of the positive or perhaps other things that have happened to you professionally, how has that affected your life?
Well, kind of like how I mentioned, I volunteered with HRC, and through that, professionally, I've made a lot of connections in my network and basically who I call kind of my chosen family, right? And I love that. In a negative way, I think that has taken a toll because that's kind of the only family that I have. I'm not close with my blood family. My mom's side of the family, I don't really know. And my dad's side of the family, well, they'll hate me because I'm gay. So it's put a toll in the sense that my mind is it's constant, kind of like being a part of the LGBT community is who I am. And so moments kind of like when the Pulse shooting happened, for example, back in 2016, I didn't know anybody personally, but that took a big toll because it was like, here we have a bunch of folks in supposed to be a safe place that got murdered. And it was heartbreaking. And I was able to fly there and kind of help volunteer, help support some of the families. And just hearing the stories kind of triggered me back to when I was homeless, because I was like, shit, is being gay okay? So there's moments like that where I wouldn't call it a regret, but it just reminded me of why is this hate being targeted to our community, and that's a negative, but for the most part positive. Again, I've had the privilege to advocate, to speak for those who can't, and to have this new family in my life that I know supports me on every occasion, every event that I do, every word that I have to share, and that's amazing. I would never, replace that.
I just want to give a real quick shout out to Silicon Valley Pride. Yeah, let's give it up to Silicon Valley Pride. For so many people. Because having that community here is so extremely impactful and is so like uplifting and positive. Going to Pride every year and seeing so many people and so many vibrant colors and a kaleidoscope of different identities is so awesome. Like, and I mean awesome as in awesome. It's like it's so cool. And I almost always tear up every single year whenever I see it. And I love, volunteering and being a part of these things specifically because of that. Because Jenna, like you said, having a voice and being able to talk to people and being able to express things that other people are struggling with really, really helps. And that somewhere out there, somebody is going to be affected by this in a positive way. Any last words of encouragement that you could give somebody who might be struggling with coming out right now? Jerry, why don't you go ahead and start?
To never give up, to really know that you have the support even when you feel like you don't. There's always somebody that's going to speak up for you. And whenever you're ready to do it at your own time, to do it, your own place. And who gives a fuck what anybody thinks?
Yeah.
You know that you're loved and supported.
And Jenna?
I would just say, along the similar lines to what Jerry said, like, what do you got to lose? The biggest thing I heard from a friend was when they were asked, they were a little bit older, and they said, why did you come out so much later in life? And the biggest thing that they said that had the biggest impact on me, which was also a bit of a catalyst push for me, was they said, I don't want to go the rest of my life thinking, what if? And that had such a powerful impact on me, because you think about sitting in this incredibly uncomfortable identity that's not you, and you're mentally just kind of tortured and you're just suffering. And you think about the life that you could have, and you know that it's going to be a big fucking road ahead. I compare my transition a lot to, like, it's kind of dorky, but it's like a bit of a Lord of the Rings quest, right? Where you're starting off at the beginning and you have to go to Mordor, and there's so much fucking shit in the way, talking trees and all that fun stuff.
And for some reason, a bunch of twinks that are following you around.
Oh, I know. They're so obsessed with jewelry. But eventually you get to the end and you look back with all, the friends that we made along the way, right? And I tell people myself, if you don't try, then what's the point, right? Like, you have so much to do, so much to offer that's being repressed, and it's not going to fully come out until you fully accept who you are. And I tell them, you have to learn to trust people. That's the biggest thing. You know, it's easy for us in the queer community to not trust people. It's instinctual. It goes against our instincts a lot to put faith in other people. And that was the big thing I wanted to do with myself. And like I said, I come from a very privileged and blessed household, and I'm a very optimistic, go-getter kind of person. And so it's a little bit easier for me to read people's intent. I'm very good at it. And I've been burned, but I always tell people I'd rather be burned than be cynical, right? Because what life am I going to live if I'm stuck in a stale, flat identity that's not inspirational, that does nothing? In fact, it harms me. And so you just have to be able to take that first step of faith and say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that life sucks so much that I don't want anything to do with it. So I will brave the unknown rather than stay behind and be basic. And that's what I try to tell people. Like, you're going to get burned. It's going to happen. But stick with everybody in your life that you know has your back 100%. And I promise you, you're going to make it. It's going to be hard, but it's worth it. So that's what I tell people.
Y'all give it up for Jenna and Jerry. Awesome. Thank you all so much for having us here. Thank you. Let's give it up to Silicon Valley Pride for this whole event.